nose. Bob got it from the steering wheel. He broke his nose and his jaw and his chest, his ribs. Yeah.
He was in a hospital a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in the hospital 3 weeks, but he was in bed for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
He had a concussion. He had a head. All his teeth were knocked loose, and his jaw was broke. But he had a cast around his head like this, holding his teeth together, wiring them, and also around this way he had it. So he laid with that cast on his head for that 3 months that he was in bed.
Wow. Just 2 weeks after you were married. Man.
Well, then when he was going to leave the hospital, I had strep throat.
Oh,
So they couldn't bring him by me.
oh my goodness.
And so they brought him to Zylstra's, and I went to my folks. So we didn't see each other for 3 weeks.
Oh.
We couldn't talk on the telephone because the phones were on the wall in the kitchen. So we couldn't talk to each other either. So anyway, when I was able to not have infection in my throat anymore, then I went over to Zylstra's and I stayed there until he was up and around.
Oh.
So then you and Grandma took care of him when
Yeah.
he was there.
Then I went and helped,
Yeah.
you know, after I got there. I think he was home 2 weeks before I went over there. And then I took care of him.
So
Then
was
one day Mom was down the basement, Mom Zylstra was down the basement. She called to me and she said, "Do you want to come down and see Bob's clothes?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, I went down and Bob's shoes were full of blood. They were just, had run down his pants leg. And the seat of his pants was just split. Where he, you know, the force that threw him ahead, it tore the thing, the seam right open. And everything was cut. The only thing that was, they tore his shirt up to make bandages. And, yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that could have been a different
On the road,
story.
there was a couple women that came from the lake. They had been at a picnic, and one of them was a nurse.
Oh.
And before the ambulance got there, see, we were at Johnson Park having a picnic, Zylstra reunion, and we wondered why Bob and George didn't come. We thought they should be there by that time. Finally, Ben Knoper come running down the hill, and he walked up to Dad and said something to Bob's dad, and we could just see the look on Bob's dad's face. He just, like he just froze. Well, then he told him that the guys were both hurt and that they were on their way to the hospital. Well, we didn't understand it, that they were on the way to the hospital, so I don't know who we rode with anymore, but we rode out to Allendale and we got there and the guys were gone. We met the ambulances on the road. So we went back and we went there and we got to Butterworth Hospital. And I come in and they asked if I was Mrs. Zylstra, and I said yes. Well, they took me in where this guy laid and his face was just cut right open, and he got killed. Anyway, he died right soon after. Well, I said, "That's not my husband." Well, then they made a mistake and they took them to St. Mary's Hospital. They told us to Butterworth.
Oh my goodness.
So we went to St. Mary's, and that's where Bob and George were. Well, then Bob laid there with his hair all tied up, was covered with a gauze and bandage, and his nose was so big it just looked like it was just going to pop. And teeth all laid in his mouth. He looked terrible. So anyway, the day that he had this jaw set, it was so hot, and Bob was sitting there. They couldn't give him an anesthetic because they were afraid he would have to vomit. So he didn't have any anesthetic when they set that, and they said the sweat was running right down below the ice bag. He was so much pain.
So they kind
did
of.
he ever really, did that get set back to what he looked like? 'Cause
He looked different.
That's what Mom always said.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He looked different. His nose was much bigger, rounder, broader. His mouth was a different shape. Oh yeah.
She always said that he had a lot of space between, like that wasn't all the way up in there. Like his teeth were down lower, his top
His teeth were
jaw
lower.
was
When
down
he first
lower.
started to talk, he kept knocking his food off his fork. He wouldn't go anywhere to eat because he tried to put his fork in his mouth and he knocked the food off.
Oh, his teeth weren't in the same place.
No, but
wow.
it did shrink up some. But he had a big jagged line where they sewed that all together. And his teeth were farther apart. They always were all spaced, more like your mom's.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But
They were worse after.
Yeah,
But Mom said that was a good thing he had space, because isn't that where he would eat through?
that's where he ate.
Oh,
He had
yeah.
a little syringe with a
Yeah.
ball with a syringe,
Oh my God.
and they'd give him some soup. They'd scoop it up, and just as he was gonna swallow, they'd squirt it, and he'd about strangle.
Oh,
Finally, he said, "Give me that thing."
Yeah, for sure.
He took a hold of that and he fed himself.
Much better. Yeah. I don't want to do that when they're not expecting.
Bob wasn't one to pussyfoot around.
Nope. We gathered.
See, then when Bob could be up, when he could get up, first thing he wanted to do, he wanted to see his car. Well, they pulled his car out behind the barn.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they got Bob in the car by the door and brought him out to the back so he could see his car. That went to the junkyard, and it was a year old. He brought it back brand new. And so, then Mom and I took care of him until he was up and around. Well, then they had George and Florence and Esther home yet, where my folks didn't have anybody. I was the youngest one, and they had 2 bedrooms upstairs empty. So then we moved over by my folks, and we stayed there. This was in October, about in the fall, and we stayed there until in the spring. And Bob didn't work any of that time.
Okay.
So then he went to work for my brother-in-law in Granville in the grain elevator. And so he worked there 3 days a week. He worked there 3 days a week. He got $9 a day. And no, he got $3 a day. So we got $9 a week to live on. And what was I going to say? He got $3 a day. We made $9. Oh, we paid $10 a month rent. So we had a little box. We had 3 petitions. 1 week, this $2 went in here for groceries, and $2 went in here for rent, and $2 went in here for whatever.
oh.
That's what we lived on. Until he got the job at Coca-Cola. Then he started making more.
And how long was that when he got that job?
Oh, probably maybe a year that he worked for Bill for that. Yeah.
Because he just wasn't able to work yet? He was too
Yeah.
just
He
recovering
had
still?
headaches every day.
Oh.
Every day he had headaches. Until finally one day my dad was after him to go to Dr. Gildy, who was a chiropractor.
Oh, I remember him.
Well, Bob didn't think anything of a chiropractor.
I did.
But anyway, he did it to please Dad.
Okay.
So one night we was coming home, and Bob said, "There, my headache is gone." That was the first time in a year that he didn't have a headache.
Oh.
But it came back. But a few more treatments, and he didn't have any more headache.
Oh, yay.
Well, can you imagine how many things were all off kilter if he had been hit that hard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my
It's
goodness.
no wonder.
So then we moved back to Allendale. And we moved in that little house of Bob's folks. Well, then we had to get out of there because George got married. George had to get married, so he didn't have to. I didn't mean that.
See, that's how rumors start.
He wanted to get married.
Oh, that's a lot
And the-
different.
Wanted that little house, so we had to get out of that little house.
You should have said, I'm here first.
And then George and Marie, they lived on the farm,
Yeah.
but then they took Pete and May.
Yeah.
No, not May.
Well, I don't. Jean.
Jean.
Pete and Jean.
Pete and Jean.
Yeah.
They took them to live with them that first winter.
Oh.
They were newlyweds, but they took Jean and Pete in there to live with them.
Oh, bless him.
So where were their parents then at that point? Jean
You
and
know,
Pete.
things went altogether different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know if
Grandpa
they
and
were.
Grandma out.
It could have been really out of Maine or I don't know where.
Happy birthday to you. Yay! I missed some of that. Should we sing again?
No, you got the good part that to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, don't burn yourself.
So anyway,
Yeah.
Okay, the story of the tree.
Well, up at the cottage, there was always 2 trees alongside of the sidewalk, driveway. And you always had to watch out when you backed out, because one tree was a little closer than the other. So I was there one week, we were up there for about 10 days, and I
Just
know
Dad
that
and Millie.
there was a tree trimmer across the road, and I says to him, "Can you cut that tree down right there?" He says, "Oh yeah, I can do that." He
Stop.
says,
Stop.
He came in the house, in the cottage, and he said, "Did you bring the checkbook along?" Yes.
Do
Well,
we
I'm
have
just
any
gonna
money?
spend some money.
Okay.
well, anyway, this guy cut this tree down, and it was all gone. Cleaned it up nice.
Perfectly.
But then he ground the stump, and you get all that garbage, that old rotten stump. I hauled it all away on Bev's lot back there. She said I could. So I got that out of there. And then I had to haul sand back to haul that fill in. All I had was the wheelbarrows, but I got it all done. And I
Planted
drove
grass.
over that and a few times, you know, to make it look nice and flat. And I just assumed this, that when those kids come up there, they'll never notice that tree was gone. And sure enough, we couldn't wait until those gals got up there, and 5 of them drove in the yard and never saw the tree was gone. And Al, one day, Al and Joan were backing out of the yard, and it was kind of close, so Joan says to Al, he says, "Oh, we got a lot of room on this side." He looked out the door and he says, "Boy, there's a lot of room on this side too." The tree was gone. The whole tree.
He goes, "There's all kinds of room on my side."
And you didn't still notice. It was my husband.
Jerry knows.
It was Jerry.
What?
Finally noticed.
Did your friend finally notice?
Yeah, like weeks later.
We had all been up there on how many times?
Okay, so Dad said he had a surprise for us. Well, we thought that he changed the little light switch in the bathroom. We're like, well, thank you, Dad, for changing the light switch. I have a surprise for you when you get there. We're like,
And
we
we were-
don't know what it is.
And I go in the bathroom, it's the light switch. What a letdown.
Instead of like a light switch this big, it's like a 60-foot tree that's like this big around isn't there anymore.
Oh man, 5 girls went up there one time. I don't know how many days were you there.
Oh,
Nobody ever noticed that tree was gone.
We drove in and out right by where the tree was.
And they would tell everybody, watch out for the tree. When you back out of the driveway. And Linda and I are standing there and I go, oh, look, is somebody planting grass here?
Well, we did. And I said to Linda, "Did you plant this grass?" Because she's always the grass planter.
Oh,
And none of us noticed there was no tree. Oh my goodness.
look up.
Well, Jerry was backing up to hook up our Sea-Doo, and all of a sudden he's backing up and he's looking. He's getting a really funny look on his face, and he's backing up. I said, "Do you want me to get out and like direct you?" And he goes, "No." And he kind of gets mad, and he gets out of the truck and he slams the door and he walks around and he goes, I said, "What?" And he goes, "There's just something not right here." It's like, where is that tree?
He's not near as easy going as Al. He just goes, oh, all kinds of room on my side.